on the 4th of December 2025. I'm Councillor Carl Jordan and I will be chairing this meeting this afternoon. Can I please ask you to ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting? And I wish to remind members signing in remotely of the legal obligations to have their cameras switched on during the meeting, please, in order for you to be seen and heard while participating in the council business. As a Galsworthy, we understand that you're not feeling very well this afternoon. We give you dispensation to keep your camera off. Thank you. In addition, members, thank you, Councillor Galsworthy. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually viewing this meeting could raise their electronic hand, and for members in the meeting room today, just raise your physical hand. We're not doing a fire drill this afternoon, so members at home, if you see us getting up and leaving the room, is the reason for it. We'll endeavour to come back as quickly as possible. Thank you. We have also received apologies from Councillor Aubrey this afternoon, and can we welcome Councillor Grounds to the meeting with us. Thank you. Agenda item 2, members, are declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Reynolds, please.
I declare an interest on the item on third sector grants due to the fact that I'm chair of Carnarvon Mardy and we're in receipt of a grant.
Carnarvon Mardy.
I will be needing to leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sarah Thomas, please.
Yeah, I'm also on the board of Carnarvon Mardy, although I do have a dispensation, so I don't know whether I need to leave or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if you could,
Okay.
Councillor Thompson, we'll invite you back in. Thank you. Any other declaration of interest, members? I can't see any. So moving on to agenda item 3, which are the minutes of the previous meeting. You will see the minutes attached in your pages 5 to 14 of agenda packs. If you feel that these meetings are an accurate record of the meeting, can I please have a proposer and a seconder? I propose, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wolford. And thank you, Councillor Reynolds, for seconding. Thank you. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, I will take it that these minutes are approved.
No indications to us the minutes that are approved.
Thank you, Alison. So moving on to part 1, which is agenda item 4A. It's a third sector grant scheme and the outcome of the review and interim arrangements 2026 to 2027. These were issued to members as a supplement. Officers, do you have anything further to add to this?
We just leave Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Sarah Thomas leave the meeting, and we'll call you back in, Councillor Sarah Thomas.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. There they are. They have left the room, okay, and out of the meeting. Officers, do you have anything further to add to the report, please?
No, Chair, nothing to add to this report. It's going to be presented to Cabinet on the 16th of December.
Thank you, Karen. Members, do you have any questions for officers? Councillor Percy, please.
Thank you. Just 2 comments, really, if I'm honest, rather than questions. I think it is welcome to see this being reviewed and particularly getting some fresh pair of eyes on the scheme. Looking through the report, there seems to be some quite useful feedback, actually, in terms of some relatively minor tweaks we could make that I think could have a big impact. And I just wanted to pick up 2 things. One, I was pleased that we engaged with organisations who are not currently in receipt of the funding, because I think that is very useful, and I'm glad that was sort of added in, and certainly worth delaying the report a little bit for. And likewise, in terms of the recommendations that have been picked out, I think the big one is the 3-year programme of funding and maybe a more of a focus around that. As a council, we're often critical of our grant funders for sort of leaving us in positions of uncertainty. So I think if we can limit that to external organisations that we fund, that would be very welcome. So I just wanted to just pull out those points and support those. And I look forward to seeing what recommendations we do take forward when the new scheme comes in. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Karen, do you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Percy. Yes, that was something that was added right at the end of the review. It was out of scope at the start, but the consultants who undertook the review thought it would add value to the output in terms of speaking to those organisations. Yes, we're now going to take time now to have a look at the recommendations. There's lots of recommendations in there, suggestions for improvement, and we are really keen to spend time on that. Hence this report to Cabinet with those transition arrangements for 26-27. So we're keen to spend some time on that, and we're keen also to co-produce the new scheme as well with members and the involvement of the third sector next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Percy, are you happy?
Yeah, happy. Diolch.
Thank you. I can't see any further questions online. There's no hands raised in the room. So the recommendation is found on your supplement at page 2. I'm happy to propose. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second, Chair.
Happy to-
Thank you, Councillor Wilford. Can members indicate if they wish to abstain, please?
Abstentions, Chair.
Thank you. Members, if you don't indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this recommendation is supported.
No indications to the contrary, Chair, the recommendation is supported.
Thank you, Alison. Moving on to agenda item 4B. Sorry, Councillor Reynolds has come back in.
Please, Chair. Just calling them back into the meeting. And Senator Thomas is back in the meeting, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome back, both councillors. Moving on to agenda item 4B, which is the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review Report, 2025 and 26. Again, these are found on pages 15 to 36 of your agenda packs. Officers, do you have anything further to add, please?
No, nothing to add, Chair. The report was approved at Cabinet last week, so happy to move to questions. Diolch.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions, please? I can't see any, so thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4C, which is the Treasury Management Monitoring Report, Quarter 2, 2025 to 26, found on pages 37 to 49 of the agenda packs. Officers, again, do you have anything further to add, please?
No, nothing further, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Members, any questions for officers? Thank you. There's nothing raised. So, members, you're asked to note the report. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4D, which is the Quarter 2 Revenue Budget Monitoring Report on the pages 51 to 77 of our packs. Again, officers, do you have anything further to add, please?
No, nothing to add, Chair. Again, agreed at Cabinet last week and happy to move to questions.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for officers, please? We have Councillor Reynolds in the chamber. Councillor Percy, we come to Councillor Reynolds first. I'll come back to you if that's okay. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering if there could be anything from officers about what the level of reserves have been over the last 3 years overall for the council, given that now we're quite far down. I'd just like to put that in context, if possible, please, Hugh.
Yes, so if I could just sort of add a bit more context on that, I suppose. If we look at our reserve balances prior to the pandemic, because the pandemic significantly influenced those balances. If you go back to 31st of March 2020, our reserve balances were £59 million. They then went up to 79 million and then 104 million during the sort of 2 years of the pandemic. They have now come back down to £61 million from the £104 million from March 2022. So stabilised really now in terms of where they were pre-pandemic. So hope that's helpful.
Thank you. That is helpful because you have those figures in the context.
Thank you.
Right. My next question's around the delegated schools budget. I'm assuming it doesn't say on the chart, but from reading further down that the 6,118 figure is in deficit, and that's the projected for the end of the year.
That's the projection for the in-year deficit. So you'd need to add that on to the £2.3 million deficit at the beginning of the year. So that would take the projected deficit to around £8.3 million by the end of March, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that I hadn't worked that one out. That's useful. And my next question is on the home to school transport on page 58. I am aware that there are issues around this. However, I wanted to know how much of the impact and the fact that we're looking at, another overspend this year. And as I understand it, that's partly due to, struggling to get contracts within the prices that are being requested. How much of that is due to the historic issues in terms of contracts for homeschool transport?
Don't know if I can answer that specifically. I suppose from my perspective, when we had the what's the terminology, correct terminology, the profile of savings that we intended to or hope to deliver through that external contract, this financial year we were expecting to deliver £350,000. So £350,000 was removed from the home to school transport budget. Obviously, that piece of work is no longer taking place. So there's an automatic £350,000 overspend there because we took the budget out. Nothing's happened. Subsequent to that, as you quite rightly say, there have been some routes retendered in the summer, which have also gone up in price by around £150,000. So that's what contributes to most of the overspend. I wouldn't be able to comment as to why the routes have gone up in price because they went through a legitimate tender exercise, obviously.
Thank you. I think there is a need for the relevant committee, although it's been declined at that committee, to look at school transport in some detail, even though it's been to governance and audit. And that's, I think, an essential thing that the Education Committee and or another committee need to look into. And on page 61, I suspect Sean might be asking about this, I don't know as well, Councillor Percy, is the car parking, the overspend there. Again, what's the rationale and what's the issue around that? And does it go back to the concerns that were expressed where parking was put up in the lay-bys on the beach, etc., and then removed?
An element of it relates to that, yes. So we would have assumed within the budget this year an amount of income for car parking charges at Garbra and Seafront. Clearly, that's not now happening, so therefore that income isn't being received, so there's an overspend. But I think if you look back historically, there's been an overspend in car parking over a number of years, purely because we can't get sufficient numbers of people to park in our pay and display car parks. So one of the issues we're looking at for next year's budget setting is actually right-sizing that budget going forward.
And then we're looking at the council tax reduction scheme on page 62. It floors me every time there's an underspend there. This time there seems to be quite a big underspend, and I'm concerned, given what we know about the cost of living and issues around there, what the issues are around that. Are we aware? Have we looked into it? I know we try and promote it every now and again. So what's the
predominant reason for the underspend there is that when we set this year's council tax reduction scheme budget, we assumed that we would have an uptick in people accessing the scheme due to recent events in Port Talbot, should we say. However, we haven't seen, which is a good news story, we haven't seen people coming in to take up council tax reduction scheme, which means they've either been able to obviously have better jobs, different jobs elsewhere. So whilst we made provision for 15,700 people to receive support, there's actually only 15,291 people receiving support at the moment. So in effect, it's a good news story because people aren't coming through the door seeking CTRS support. And as you say, we do promote it on a regular basis.
Thank you, Hugh. I have got some possible questions on things further down, but I'll leave others to.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you. Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Yeah, dear, thanks. The question on parking, I think I raised last time. So I remember who flagging that up in the previous meeting. So the one I just wanted to flag up today was on page 61 as well, but in relation to the agency worker spend in the refuse budget, and just trying to understand what's materially different at the moment for there to be an overspend. I know we account for agency spend within the budget generally, you know, because we do obviously have, it's a critical service, we have sickness, and I know we've got our own reserve pool of staff. So I don't know if we understand a bit more about what's behind that figure.
That's not something that I am able to answer, Councillor Percy, I'm afraid. So I don't know if Nicola's on the call, because I haven't got my glasses on and can't see the screen. Right, I can see now she's on the call and she's got her hand up. So Nicola can help out on this one, I believe. Thank you.
Yeah, as Councillor Percy indicated, we have got spares pool that services the whole of neighbourhood. So it's not just the waste service, it's the neighbourhood street care generally. And we call on that reserve to cover sickness and to cover leave requests, etc. We have had a significant issue in terms of sickness within the service recently, and as you indicated, we still need to pick up people's waste and recycling on a daily basis, so we can't just not carry out that task if we've got insufficient staff. So unfortunately, due to the sickness we've experienced, we've had to call on that spares pool and on agency staff. We had a particular problem in April of this year where we had a big spike, and that linked to route rationalisation that we were undertaking, and members will recall that it was a little bit chaotic at the time, where the service routes weren't necessarily being completed on a daily basis, and we were having to overrun into the weekends and evenings. In the end, we reverted back to you know, the original routes. But it is something that we're looking to progress with in the future when we have new vehicles in operation. So it is as a consequence of sickness and leave. We are trying to cover it with the spares pool. We have got a HR officer that we pay for out of the directorate's budget to try and support us in terms of managing that sickness. And so we're trying to drive down those costs. So we put in those measures in place to resolve the problem, but it's a bit of a sticky issue, unfortunately. But hopefully that's answered your question, Councillor.
Do you want to come back in there, Sean?
No, I think Nicola's answered as best she can there, so happy with that, yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Percy. Thank you, Nicola. Councillor Reynolds, do you have anything else to ask?
Yeah, I just wanted under the where we're looking at the RAG analysis. Where things are marked in amber, it concerns me when you just get an in progress comment. You don't get any real explanation. I congratulate Angela Thomas in Social Services because her explanations are detailed and give you the information that you need. But where something's obviously, whether that's marked wrongly and it should be green and in progress, and it's, you know, something which is going on throughout the year, therefore it's not made it yet, or whether it's the explanation is just insufficient. I'd like more detail on that if I could. Yep. So we're looking at some by Dave Griffiths, so environment mostly, sorry Nicola, environment D, E, F, G, and also environment P, those sorts of ones, Simon, environment AA and AB. So yeah, it's those that just concern me, that there isn't any real explanation.
So what the amber category means is that the work is ongoing to deliver those savings, but the heads of service can't categorically say at this point in time they'll be delivered at that value by the end of the financial year. But I take your point, in progress doesn't say very much. So if it's okay, when I bring the next quarterly report forward, I'll do the same around each of those and include in progress and actually what is being done as opposed to just in progress.
Thank you. It doesn't mean to be much.
No,
just something that says.
Is that okay going forward as opposed to Nicola describing each one now? Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you.
And we're all aware that Dave Griffiths has retired from post, so it could be a case of his
success, James Davis.
Yeah, James. Yeah. So thank you. I can't see any further questions online. There's no hands raised in the room. So members, I'm going to ask you to note the report. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4E, which is a capital budget monitoring report 2025-26, pages 79 to 108 of your agenda packs. Members, if anything, officers, do you have any further to add, please?
No, nothing further, Chair. Thank you. Once again, happy to take questions members may have.
Thank you. Members, any questions, please? Councillor Percy.
Yeah, I do have a few questions on this one. To begin with, on page 92, I've asked about this one a fair few times now, the neighbourhood improvement programme. So there's a comment there about proposals are being developed. Be interested to understand what that process is and whether those proposals are limited to the Environment Directorate only, because I know there's been some discussion in the past about it being perhaps a slightly wider scheme. This is the £2.5 million fund. You know, and just as an example, I can think of a few things, you know, in my ward, as I'm sure we all can. You know, I've got the example of the sculptures on Aberavon Seafront, which have been trying to get refurbished and painted for probably 5 or 6 years now. And, you know, we come to the conclusion we can't access grant money to do it. It feels like a fund like this is something we can use to deal with those perhaps tricky projects that are just sitting there, because we know we can't access external funding. So I'd be interested to know a little bit more about how those can be, how those projects are going to be chosen.
So I kick off, and whether Nicola wants to. Well, if I kick off and Nicola can come in. So in terms of the question around directorates, no, it's not just an Environment Directorate programme. So, for example, Chris Saunders, Head of Leisure, Tourism, Culture and Heritage, is also looking at proposals. What I would say is it was never intended to be a replacement for the members' fund. So it isn't a fund where all members have a chunk of money that they get to spend in their wards. So, however, I'm assuming that Nicola's going to come in as well and talk around about the fact that we've just had the highway surgeries, for example. So there will have been projects that have been flagged up in that process where members are fed into, which potentially weren't eligible for the highways programme, but could fall into this programme. So Nicola's team have done a lot of work in terms of putting things together. Chris is doing some work. And in terms of the process, then it'll be a question of discussing with Cabinet informally as to whether what officers have come up with is what they envisage from the programme, and then obviously going through the process. As noted in the report, £500,000 of the fund has already been allocated to the refurbishment of 16, 12, I can't remember the number exactly, play areas. So that's underway, and the procurement is ongoing, but started on that. So that's what I would say to it, but I'll hand over to Nicola, who can tell you more on what the Environment Directorate have done to date. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a draft shopping list, effectively, of asks, and they're based on some of the risks that we are carrying as an organisation in terms of the infrastructure we've got in our public realm. So that may well range from trees which are affected by ash dieback, which are adjacent to our highway network and therefore pose a danger to the public. So we've managed to secure funding to date to undertake the survey work on that. But if that survey work identifies that significant lopping of trees is required, we do not have the funds in the budget to undertake that work. So there are items such as that. There's fencing work, works to rights of way, bus stations, bus shelters, works along Aberavon Seafront to ensure that we've got hostile vehicle mitigation measures in place. Again, hostile vehicle mitigation in our town centres to enable events to take place without us having to spot treat every event at expense of the council, so they should in turn reduce our revenue costs. So there are examples such as that, and that's not all of the examples, but that will give you a flavour of some of the things that are on the list. So that list will be considered informally by Cabinet shortly, and then we will devise a way of identifying which priority projects go forward, whether whether they are on this list already or whether that list expands, and then we will get a definitive decision on what projects are going to be delivered and when. We are mindful that our shopping list probably exceeds the quantum of funding that is available, sadly, because we are carrying more risk than we would like, but it does incorporate some of the issues that have been identified, as Hugh said, from the feedback we've been having from the member surgery. So hopefully that addresses your concern or your question.
If I can just come back in there as well, just in terms of that list, we haven't shared that at all with the Cabinet yet. So that is purely a list that that Nicola's team have drawn up. As I've said earlier, Councillor Percy, Chris Saunders is also doing some work in that space as well. So we will have a combined set of proposals to discuss with the Cabinet. It may be they tell us absolutely not, we don't want to do any of those, we want to do something totally different. But it's always best to start with something as opposed to a blank sheet of paper. So that's where we are with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Councillor Percy. Do you have a second question?
Yeah, I've got a few more questions, and I'll just come back on this one if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, carry on.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's good news. We're sort of drawing up a list for discussion by the Cabinet, and I think there's some sensible things in there, Nicola, in terms of for us to pick up. I'll maybe make a semi-formal request now that the two sculptures, one in East and one in West on the beach, are put in for discussion. They're looking unsightly, they're rusting, we've got no funding for them, and if we would invest in bits of money in the seafront, and it is looking a little bit silly because the public see that we can't paint the sculptures, and I know it's a big job. It's not just a lick of paint, but I'll take the opportunity to make that point now. But other than that does sound good. So we'll keep an eye on that programme. I'm sure it'll be very interesting. So my next question is on page 102, and is in relation to Millen Road footbridge. And it's just noted as discussions ongoing, and I just wondered whether that is currently on hold because of the wider discussions happening around Neath train station, the transport hub review, and the master planning of Neath Town Centre, or whether that is still progressing as its own thing. So I'd just be grateful for some clarity there. Diolch.
Again, sorry, Nicola.
Go on. No, here you going. Go.
No, I was going to refer to you anyway, so you carry on.
Okay.
And if you don't know the answer, we can get it circulated outside the meeting.
My understanding is that the discussions regarding Millen Road footbridge are ongoing, because what we are trying to do is to maximise the operation of our land with those of other partner organisations. So you'll know there is a very complicated land ownership issue in that particular area, where you've got Transport for Wales owning some land, you've got Archco owning some land, we own some land, and the leases and everything that are in place on top of the land ownership are even more complicated. So we need to rationalise all of that, regardless of what we do in terms of a transport hub. So that work is continuing to proceed, and it will not be delayed by any master planning work that we are doing in Neath Town Centre.
Okay, thanks, Nicola. I think in terms of rationalising leases and ownership, I think that's all sensible, but I think if we're going to plough ahead with a scheme, that might be another thing that perhaps needs a little bit of wider thought. So I suppose that's why I asked the question, because it might be a little bit tricky if we deliver a scheme in isolation of the wider piece of work, but that's fine. My next question then is on page 106, and there's a reference to the Burrows Yard site and £70,000 in capital cost there, and I'm just wondering what that relates to specifically. Obviously, I know the site is being developed currently by Aldi. I know we have an interest in one of the units that they are developing for us, but I'm not sure what this £70,000 cost relates to as part of the scheme. So would be grateful for any insight on that one.
That 70,000 relates to a decision that was taken in private, Councillor Percy. So if I send or share a copy of that private report to members of the committee, they can see what it relates to, but I can't really comment on it in an open session. So I'll get it sent around via Alison after the meeting.
that's fine. I may well have seen this report and just forgotten about it, but would appreciate that. Diolch. That's the end of my
It goes
questions.
back Chair. Just on that point, Chair, it does go back a number of years, that report, Councillor Percy, so but I will send it round. So thank you, Diolch.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, members, for the questions. Members, I'm going to ask you again to note the report. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4F, which is the Strategic Risk Register, Q2, pages 109 to 142 of your packs. Officers, do you have anything further to add to the report, please?
Nothing to add to this one, Chair. Thank you. Happy to move to questions.
Thank you, Karen. Members, do you have any questions, please? Councillor Reynolds in the room and then Councillor Percy online. Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering, in terms of on the overall scoring and movement charts there were in Appendix 1. Can I have clarification? Because I did look in the upper report and didn't find it, and I've probably been told at some point, but I understand risk appetite being eager. What does open specifically mean? What's a risk appetite being open?
Thank you, Chair. Bear with me. I'll get the definition for you. Bear with me.
And cautious and eager.
Yes.
Are obvious, but you know.
Bear with me. Let's have a look. Okay, I've got it. Councillor Reynolds, open, was it? Open, yes. You queried, yes. So the definition within our risk appetite statement is willing to consider all options and choose one most likely to result in successful delivery while providing an acceptable level of benefit. So seeking to achieve a balance between a high likelihood of successful delivery and a high degree of benefit and value for money. Activities themselves may potentially carry or contribute to a high degree of residual risk.
So the implication of that, in my mind, as you read it, is that we have a number of red risks, which are red after the remediation, so residual risk that are still, that are open. We don't know what we're doing about them. Okay, it doesn't make me feel relaxed, and I just wondered, I suspect, no, I won't ask that. Thank you. I'll find someone specific to ask that to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Percy, please.
Yeah, David, thank you. I think Noelwyn normally takes this report as well, doesn't he? And I'm not sure if he's here today, is he? But just a couple of things. So to begin with, on page 123, SR01, schools has been added into that in terms of school assets, and the commentary says that there's actions added in, or mitigation plans added in, but the report currently just says it's to be updated. So I don't know whether that's forthcoming or if there's an update there. And I just wanted to draw this one out in particular because this has come up a few times from myself in scrutiny meetings as well in relation to schools building maintenance and that crossover between the Education Directorate and the Environment Directorate and the decision making and accountability of the budget. It's not entirely clear to me how all that works, to be honest, but if there's an update in terms of the school assets and the actions there, I'd appreciate that if any officers are aware.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Karen is here in the absence of Noelwyn today, so hopefully she has a response for you. So moving on to Karen, please.
Councillor Percy, I don't have a response for you. I'm sorry. If I can take that away, and we can feed back to the committee as soon as we can.
Yeah, that's fine. If those actions have been prepared and they can be circulated later, that would be very welcome.
I know work is ongoing around SR01, so we should have something for you very soon.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I've got a few more points now, if that's okay.
Yeah, carry on, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah, so page 132, SR11, there's a note there about the further review of business continuity disaster recovery arrangements to be complete by the 5th of December, which is tomorrow. And I'm just wondering whether that work is on track. But of course, that's Noelwyn's the risk owner there. So I'd understand if you didn't have the update on this one today.
From my own perspective, Councillor Percy, as an accountable manager working on a business continuity plan, that will be completed by tomorrow. And I understand, I'm looking across to Sheena, that's the message that's been sent out to all accountable managers for updated business continuity plans to be ready by tomorrow.
Okay, great. I think if we're giving Noelwyn a little list of things to feed back to the committee, perhaps an update on that would be very welcome as well, because I'm sure there'll be some people that do get them in time and others that may not. So and that would be useful if you could put that on. Thank you.
Will do.
My next question then is on page 138, and that's in relation to the climate change impacts. And I just wondered there, in terms of actions and mitigation plans, and we've got Nicola here, so perhaps Nicola can give me some feedback on this. There's a lot there in terms of the sort of strategic overview, lobbying for resources, development plans, etc. But on this one, in terms of mitigating the risk of climate change in terms of flooding and infrastructure, do we have actions and mitigation plans in relation to our operational behaviour? For example, weather changes, doesn't it? And the need to clean gullies changes, the need to grit changes, etc. And I just wondered whether that's factored into that risk management, the need to sort of change operationally over time. I know it might be contained within other plans, but I just wanted to pick that point up while I was looking at this document. Yeah.
Are you happy for me to come in, Chair?
Yes, carry on, Nicola, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, we've got operational plans in relation to sort of winter preparedness, effectively. And I think a winter preparedness report went to our scrutiny committee. Which one was it? Culture Connection, the visual services and street care scrutiny meeting in the last few weeks, in terms of advising on our winter preparedness. Because that was a particular issue that members wanted to understand better and scrutinise. So we are adapting to changing in circumstances all the time. We had an amber warning, a weather warning on Monday, for example, and we undertake dynamic risk assessments. So we pulled all the neighbourhood staff off their normal activities in terms of litter picking and so on to focus on our drainage infrastructure. So we already pay high regard and high attention to our critical culverts, and to make sure that they are clear before the weather descends. And what we had was all of our other staff from neighbourhood focusing on the remaining drainage infrastructure to ensure that we could respond quickly to any blockages, etc. And if there was surcharging, that we were on hand to activate plans to start pumping and protect life and property. So it's very dynamic in terms of our approach, albeit we do have operational plans in place, and we have maintenance plans, we have inspection regimes in place in terms of how often you inspect certain pieces of infrastructure, and that will always change according to circumstances. So hopefully that answers that question, but we did report recently to scrutiny on that.
Okay.
Thank you, Nicola. Councillor Percy?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Nicola. I think just in terms of what's on the register, perhaps it doesn't capture all of that. Perhaps ongoing kind of review of those operational matters, perhaps in terms of those changing weather patterns. So
Yeah.
That's probably the only reflection, was just in terms of what the register shows. But as a local member, we see the teams out and about doing those weather events, and particularly the weather events, a few days before, you see the gully suckers going round, you see the leaves being cleared, So, you know, as local members, we know that, you know, we are on the case. So it's just in relation to what's on this. That's all.
And we also have operational risk registers as well. So those day-to-day risks that we carry as a directorate within my service area, you know, there's that level of detail contained on those risk registers, and then each service has their own smaller risk register. So this is just the strategic. This is just capturing the strategic risks, and some of the detail will be in the other risk registers.
Thank you. That's great. That's the end of my questions on this item, Chair. Diolch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Thank you, Nicola. I think all members are sort of happy to feel that we are proactive rather than reactive in the council, especially with the Environmental Directorate. Nicola, you yourself being online and Rashina in the room, do you mind if I ask a question regards our crews being sort of sent away from their normal roles into a sort of a possible risk hazard of being committed into flood water? So what sort of training do we sort of give our colleagues at the forefront at any incident involving water, really? Thank you.
Shall I come in there, Chair? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Nicholas.
We would never put any of our staff at risk. We have had feedback during particular storm events where we've looked at the lessons learned afterwards, and we've had complaints that issues were raised with the council that a particular culvert was blocked or a particular water course was overtopping, and why were the council not there pulling the debris from the river, etc., etc. Well, we are not going to endanger the lives of our staff. Our staff are there to try and prevent things from happening, and also to react when it's safe to do so. So hopefully that addresses your concern that whilst we were redeploying staff to prepare and to respond where appropriate, we would never put them in danger in terms of expecting them to go into a fast flowing or deep body of water during an event, because that would be irresponsible. And goodness knows what the consequences would be if something happened, if we were to make that instruction to staff. So rest assured, we do not do that. We do not instruct staff to go into those, you know, expose themselves to those hazards.
Thank you, Nicola. That's quite comforting to you. Thank you very much indeed. Members, I can't see any further hands raised in the room or online. So I'm going to ask you to note the report. Thank you. So moving on to part 2, which is agenda item 5, which is to consider items from the Scrutiny Forward Work Programme. I can tell you there are no items from the Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme to be considered today. So we're going to move on to part 3, which is agenda item 6A. Let's talk Living in Neath Talbot Resident Survey 2025. Again, this was issued as a supplement to us. Officers, can I ask you if anything further to add, please?
Nothing further to add. Thanks, Chair. But happy to take questions.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Percy, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a couple of comments and questions on this one. Again, appreciate, you know, I know Niall was doing a lot on this one as well, and we've had a few discussions on this survey. Yeah, I think looking at it more generally, I mean, there's some comments in there acknowledging that the national picture and view of local government and councils, you know, there's a lot of negative narrative out there. So I think we do need to take some things within that context. And I accept the premise of that in the report. But I just had a couple of things I wanted to pick out. One is in relation to what the follow-up is going to be internally. So it talks about actions to be developed, help the council respond to the feedback, identify areas, and that we're going to use this, make this available as secondary data to service areas. But you know, are we going to get a report back in this committee in terms of what those actions look like? And it's going to be interesting for other scrutiny committees to understand how that secondary data is used and interpreted by those service areas. So I was just wondering if we've got a bit of an idea of how that data is going to be disseminated in practice, and whether we're going to be requiring a formal response from service areas to the survey in any way. And then I'll just make a comment around the demographics as well. Again, it acknowledges there's an element of self-selection here. We have got to be mindful of who's filled out the survey and how they've got hold of it. And I'm particularly conscious that we emailed staff, and staff will have a different view of the council to other members of the public, because they'll have a better understanding of what the council does. And I wondered if we had the ability to break down a little bit more, to work out how many staff responded to the survey as well, and just to understand where those gaps are in those demographics, because I know we've got age. There's a little bit of data on the ward spread, but I think if we could drill down a little bit more into that, I think it would be quite useful just to understand the robustness or otherwise of the spread of data. But in general, there's a few interesting things in here, both positive and negative, which has been quite interesting to see. So I'll leave it there for now, Chair. But if any officers are able to give that feedback, I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Percy. Yeah, so if we look at sort of the next steps and sharing the data first, we weren't going to require formal feedback from services about what actions they are going to take. The survey reports and tables will be shared with other officers and members. So we make them available on MPT Connect so that all services can access them as sources of secondary data. Really important to say that they really should be used alongside other available data when looking at service developments, etc. They are part of a broader holistic approach to performance management and engagement that we are taking. So, they aren't, you can't take it as this is in the survey, so this is absolutely got to be taken as read. They need to be used with other data really carefully. We were also going to share them with the community of practice on involvement and engagement. So that is the group of officers and some partners who their jobs aren't technically engagement jobs, but they are constantly in touch with specific groups of our communities. So that was how we were going to share the data with officers and members. We're also working on a public facing summary document to close the loop, because that is really important to let respondents know and our communities know what we've been told, and really to show how much we do value their feedback, that we, it just doesn't get parked. We are going to feed back to them. We're working with the comms team on this because where possible, we would like to include information on it or anything that's already happening or being planned to respond to some of the things that have been indicated, and I'm using the term indicated. So for example, figure 21 indicates that 65.81% of people, respondents, didn't feel that they were very well informed or informed at all by the council. So in that, we would want to signpost in this document to all of the ways that you can interact with the council, one of them being My NPT, which is the new residents platform. That's a really good one, actually, because it was only residents over a certain age that could fill in the survey, and it's only residents who can actually go onto that platform. So that will be quite a good comparison. And we would hope that as more people sign up to that next year, that we would maybe see a bit of an improvement in that area. And we're working with the comms team on that, as I said. Was that all right for that part of the question, Councillor? Yeah. In terms of the demographics, so we don't have the ability to work out how many staff responded. We do generally promote our surveys, external surveys, to staff, because almost 70% of our staff are also residents. So you are right, they will have a slightly unique view because they provide the services and use the services. They're also great in helping us actually spread the word and letting people know in the communities that these surveys are going on. So they're a real essential cog in the wheel, really, of getting responses. So we don't have the ability to work out how many staff responded, but there are there's quite a lot of demographic information. So we've got religion, nationality, age, gender, sexual orientation. So we can drill into all of those and cross-tab them with some of the responses to see whether certain groups are being more or less affected by certain things. There is that ability.
Okay, that's great.
You
Just a
happy
couple,
with that, Sean?
just one or two comments, and then yeah, I've done then, Chair. Yeah, so I think
Thank
just
you,
in
Sean.
terms of service areas using this data and other data, you know, there's something, you know, that I've been sort of pushing for a long time. Some service areas are much better at using data and gathering feedback from members of the public than others. So, you know, this is part of that process now, isn't it? But I think one of the things there that will be more useful is over time we're going to get some trends from this, aren't we? Because this is the first time we've asked some of these questions, so we will get to see and understand some of those trends. And also I imagine tweak questions a little bit, maybe if there's things that we think, okay, is that actually capturing something useful or not? So there is that. I think the other thing I wanted to just flag is how we are reaching people that are not digitally included with this survey. And I know that is always a tricky one. You know, I think in my community, you know, I've got Sandfields Library, I've got a big group, several groups of people that meet there on a regular basis. They have a cup of coffee, they have a chat. They don't use computers at all, but you give them a piece of paper and they will fill it out, and they will say what they think. But we're missing sometimes capturing those people. So I just wondered if there is a mechanism within this to do that. I know it's, you know, slightly out of our control in terms of the infrastructure of this, but it's just a thought I thought I'd share that. Yeah.
Back, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Neath. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, that is a really important point, Councillor Percy, and is something that we really should be mindful of. What we did with this survey, and we did it slightly different to what we usually do with surveys. We usually go out to about 40 plus venues to distribute paper copies. The last time we did that, I think we had 11 paper responses back. With this survey, we distributed them amongst all of our libraries and our civic centres. And we also put out posters offering the opportunity for people to ring us, and then we would post them. And we had 60 back. It's still not as many as, you know, we would like. I think the timing as well. So they're looking at standardising the timing across all of the councils taking part to September, and they're looking to do that by 2027. There were certain groups that we really wanted to get out to. For example, Chai and Chat, because it was over the summer, Chai and Chat had stopped. So I think that will also move into September. That will also help us get out into actual groups that are meeting and reach those hard to reach or harder to reach respondents.
Oh, that's brilliant. Sounds like we're on the case there. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Thank you, Neath, for your responses. Members of Council, Councillor Reynolds in the room, sorry.
I was just, you know, if I'm reading the respondents by ward right, because there's no legend on it, so I'm assuming that where the colour is lighter, there's less response. It's page 6 of the report.
Yes, you're right, Councillor.
Yeah. Could I ask that there be legends on these things that help people
absolutely.
Interpret them when they come through? It's a real problem when you're looking at data like this. The other thing that stands out for me there, and has every time we've run this survey, is how the higher valley areas get less response. And we've discussed that previously in terms of, you know, people feel left out, therefore they don't bother to respond, even though you end up pushing on your social media, you end up trying to get that to happen. Is there anything that we can do to improve the response from those valley communities? Is there any focus, perhaps, you know, that you can give us as councillors to support getting a greater response in those communities?
I think it's going back again, councillor, to the timing of it. That would probably help. And what we've done in the past, we've actually identified events around and about the county borough that are already taking place. So from experience, what we found is if we say, oh, come along and talk to us, we're doing a survey, people don't tend to turn up. So what's worked better for us is when we've actually been able to identify events that are already organised in those communities. So for example, we went to a fun day in the Dulles Valley, and we went to it was called Fun in the Sun, but it was absolutely bucketing down. So it was inside, up in the Avon Valley, and people are already there. So there's a ready-made audience. So I think we need to maybe look at that going forward for future surveys.
It would be good, because I didn't have a contact for that in our community. So it would be good to have that sort of link and be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you again, Anita, for your response. Members, I can't see any further questions online or in the room. So I'm going to ask you to note the report. Move on to agenda item 6B, which is the end of your workforce monitoring report, 2024 to 25. Again, pages 143 to 162 of your agenda packs. Officers, have anything further to report, please?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sheila. Members, have any questions? Can't see any online. There's nothing in the room. So again, members, I ask you to note the report. Moving on to agenda item 6C, which is the annual health and safety report of 2024-25, pages 163, 194 of the agenda packs. Again, officers, have anything further to add to the report, please?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sheila. Members, have any questions? Can't see any. So I'm going to ask you again to note the report. So moving on to agenda item 6D, which is to resolve the exercise of powers set out in the section 35 of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015, being the designated Audit and Scrutiny Committee for this purpose, as approved by the Council in May 2015. I'm happy to propose this report. Can I have a seconder, please?
A second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wolford. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain, please?
I see no abstentions, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this item is agreed.
I see no indications contrary, Chair. The item has been agreed.
Thank you, Alison. Moving on to agenda item 6E, which is Neath Talbot Public Services Board, 6 monthly progress updates, pages 195 to 246. Officers, again, do you have anything further to add?
No, nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? Sir Percy, please.
Dave, there, and appreciate there might not be an answer to this one as I didn't circulate it in advance, but I'll ask the question all the same. It's on page 238, so it's in relation to the cultural partnership and the progress around that, and there's just one item there in relation to a funding application for a culture strategy manager post that we were expecting to know in the coming weeks. I don't know when this report was finalised, so I was just wondering if any officers present were aware if we were successful in that grant application. I don't know whether he was aware or whether we might need to have that circulated after the meeting, but that's my only question on this report, Chair.
I don't know the answer, Councillor Percy, but I will check with Chris Saunders and again get it circulated via Alison if that's okay to members of the committee.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Percy, anything further? Okay, lovely, thank you. There are no further hands raised online, nothing in the room. So again, members, I'm going to ask you to note the report. Thank you. So we'll move on to part 4, which is agenda item 7, which is the selection of items for future scrutiny, page 247 to 262. I'm now going to hand you over to Alison at this point. Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. There's just a couple of reports to bring members' attention to. First one is the Strategic Equality Plan, which is going to Cabinet on the 16th of December. Members haven't given an indication to scrutinise at this point. However, they asked for a copy of the report to be circulated when it is published, and then members can determine if they wish to call it in for scrutiny or bring it forward for scrutiny in the new year. The Innovation and Continuous Improvement Programme, which is going to Cabinet on the 26th of February, members have indicated that we wish to scrutinise that, so we'd be able to programme that into our scrutiny forward programme. And the Complaints and Compliments Policy, which is going to Cabinet on the 4th of March, members have also given an indication that they wish to scrutinise that item too, so we'll be able to programme that into our forward programme as well. And that's the only item today, Chair, to update on.
Thank you, Alison. Members, any questions? Councillor Reynolds, please.
Is the medium-term financial plan that's scheduled for Cabinet on the 7th of January scheduled into scrutiny? Anyway,
That's not considering as we can certainly programme that in.
I think it would be. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Going on from Tuesday's pre-brief as well, it was asked if we suggest that the members request pre-decision.
I think it was the items they've just been to check the
Was it? Oh,
information
right.
and the complaints and compliments.
The complaints and compliments, yes. Thank you, Alison. Thank you, members. Moving on to agenda item 8, which is any urgent items at the discretion of the chairperson pursuant to section 100 BA 6B of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. There are no further urgent items. Can I thank officers for their responses today and members for their questions. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon and have a safe journey home for those in. Talk about.
Diolch pawb.
Thank you all.